Since speaking at the ladies' banquet, I learned that if I just do an outline, I can talk for an hour. So I typed out exactly what I'm going to say. I'm going to read it to you so that hopefully it'll harness me in a little bit and won't keep you here that long. Before we had Madeline, I had experienced God communicating with me, but it was different than it is now. Before Madeline, I felt God's leading in decisions, and I felt Him pulling my heart in one direction or another, and I experienced God talking to me through His scriptures, but I had never had God speak to me personally in sentences. Maybe it's that I didn't know how to listen before, or maybe He knew how much I needed His voice now since we learned that Madeline had cystic fibrosis. Since finding out that Madeline had CF, I have known the joy and blessing of having the one and only God speak directly to me, and that is incredible to me. He created the universe, all of the planets, every single person. He is in charge of everything, and yet He takes time to listen to me and to speak to me. I'm a speck. I'm a grain of sand, and yet He loves me. He cares for me, and He wants to spend time with me, and that's how He feels about you too. My first experience with actually hearing God speak to me personally was the week after Madeline was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. I was extremely sad and scared. She was so malnourished and weak, and with knowing that she had a terminal disease, I was terrified that she was going to die. I couldn't sleep. Not that we had a lot of time to sleep with her care schedule, but I was just consumed with fear. One night while I was in her nursery, I thought, God, please don't let her die. And I truly had God say to me, Holly, I did not give her to you just so I could take her away. And I immediately had this wave of peace come over me, and I knew that our baby was not going to die. When Madeline was 4 months old, I had scheduled 2 photography sessions in Rome, Georgia, and they were for a Saturday. And I was really excited about the sessions because other than going to Children's Hospital, Madeline's pediatrician appointments, to pharmacies, and occasionally to church, I hadn't left the house much. I'd scheduled the 2 sessions where I'd have about 3 hours in between them, and I knew what I was going to do at that time. I was going to eat lunch at my most favorite place, Panera Bread, and then I was going to go over to Pier 1 in Barnes & Noble. After my first session, I went to Panera Bread to eat. I got my food, and I sat down at one of the tables. When I sat down, I looked up, and I saw a husband and a wife who had just sat down, and the wife was holding a beautiful baby girl. A couple minutes later, another lady came in and sat down at the table next to this family, and she was holding a baby carrier. The other woman with the baby daughter said, "He is so cute. How old is he?" The woman said, "He's 2 months old. How old is yours?" The other woman said, "She's 6 months old and growing too fast." As the 2 ladies continued talking, I watched them both get out bottles and just start feeding their babies. As I sat there watching, I thought, I wish I could just open up a bottle and feed Madeline. I'd have to sanitize the table and set up a workstation and then give her her enzymes and her applesauce and make her concentrated formula and add her special vitamins to it and add salt to it and then make sure she drank it all before her enzymes ran out. Basically, I just sat there and felt sorry for myself. At this time in my life, I was mentally at a very low point. Being told that your daughter has a shortened life expectancy because of a disease that she got from you and your husband isn't an easy thing to accept. I was also dealing with a lot of guilt at that time. I felt unbelievably guilty that our baby was miserable, starving, and hurting for the first 4 weeks of her life, and that I didn't know. I had never been a mother before, and I just thought that's how it was with a newborn. I thought we have a baby who just cries a lot. Because when you feed your baby over and over during the day, you think that they're eating. So I felt a lot of guilt when we found out what was going on and how bad she was at that point. I was also grieving at this time because not only was I sad for Madeline and what she was going to have to deal with in her life, but I was also grieving because it felt like all of our children had just died. Alex and I wanted to have more children. But when we first found out that we were carriers of the gene, our first reaction was that we couldn't have any more children. We didn't want to do this to them. And I was constantly thinking things like this. Will Madeline have to have a lung transplant when she's older? What if she never gets lungs? How on earth could I live knowing that I have great lungs and my daughter needs them? I'd want her to have mine. I thought about, will she ever get married? At that time, her average life expectancy was 37 years. I worried what would happen if she fell in love, and then she told him that she might not live to even be 40. Would he stay? I thought about her having children. Research has shown that giving birth will decrease her lung functionality. Will she have children? Will I have grandchildren? I worried all the time about her getting sick. What if she got the flu and her body couldn't bounce back? What if her came back that she was culturing something at her next appointment? I constantly worried about how long she'd be here with us. Will she live to high school age? Should we put her into school? She'd be exposed to so many germs. I thought about how her medical team encouraged us not to take her anywhere but to doctor's appointments from October through March. I didn't know how we were going to make that work, and I was so sad that I wasn't going to be able to take my daughter places with me like I thought I would. I worried about Madeline with her enzymes. What if there was a catastrophe like a tornado or a terrorist attack and she couldn't get enzymes? How would she eat? What if she can't get her medications for some reason? It's sad all of the places that your brain will go when you let it. We really can make ourselves sick with worry. I was consumed with these thoughts. I didn't really talk about these things to anyone but Alex. I tried to say hopeful and right things to others, but my thoughts were very scared, and I complained a lot to myself. So as I sat there at Panera, I had all of these thoughts already growing in my mind, and I sat there feeling sorry for Madeline and sorry for myself. All of a sudden, I heard God say to me, "Stop it, that is enough." I remember that I was kind of startled by that. So I just sat there and I listened. And this is what I felt God say to me. "Holly, you complain about giving your daughter enzymes so that she can eat. I wonder how many mothers from the 1980s and earlier whose children basically starved to death or died from malnutrition would have gladly given their children thousands of pills a day to have their children be alive. You should be thankful, so thankful that I've provided you a way to feed Madeline. Enzymes are miracles. Those pills allow her to eat." And talk about conviction. I was so ashamed. I didn't eat. I just sat there and listened and I thought. I sat there for 2.5 hours. And during that time, God really changed my thinking and my attitude. He told me that I was failing in one key area as a mother. Yes, it's our job as parents to keep our children safe, feed them, clothe them, take them to their checkups, teach them to talk and read, but it's also our job to teach them how they should view things, how they should think about things. We are to teach them to be joyful and have faith and trust in God. And it's not just through our words. They learn so much more from watching us and seeing how we handle things, how we view things. God told me that if I didn't change my mindset, I was going to raise a complainer. I would raise Madeline to feel like a martyr and that she'd been cheated. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to raise a girl or a woman who others dreaded seeing coming because she'd always be down or always be complaining or always feel sorry for herself. God also asked me a question that day. He said, "Holly, if I lined up a row of completely healthy babies and put Madeline in that row and said that you could pick any child to be your son or daughter, who would you pick?" I immediately thought, Madeline. I want Madeline. I would pick Madeline. I then felt God show me that if I thought about all the things that we have to do to take care of Madeline as burdens, that as Madeline grew up, she would feel like she was a burden to us too. I've been so different since that day. My mind has been so different since that day, and it is completely because of God. The day after my experience at Panera, I started saying to Madeline before I give her each enzyme, "Praise God for enzymes." I even had her an enzyme bowl made, and we use it to put her empty enzyme capsules in, and on the bowl it has painted, "Praise God for enzymes." I want her to view enzymes and medicines as gifts, as miracles. I want her to have a good attitude. I know she'll have some bad days. I have some bad days too. I mainly have bad days when I hear about a child or a person with CF dying, or about a child with CF being in the hospital for a long period of time. I get scared when I hear that a CF person's lungs are shutting down and that they've been added to the donor list. At those times, I let myself cry and be down, but I don't stay there. I don't allow myself to stay there. So I know Madeline will have bad days or bad weeks, and I'll let her grieve. I'll hold her and I'll be patient, but I do not want her to stay there. I want her to be joyful and know that she was not cheated, she was chosen. I want her to know that she is a blessing, not a burden, and that God has a reason for everything. God has a plan for her life and a purpose for her. God has gone above and beyond in speaking to me. A few months ago, Madeline had to be put to sleep so that Children's Hospital could test her lungs. I was very anxious, but I tried to be positive and trust God. I did really well the day of the test until it was time to leave her. They gave her the medicine and then let me hold her and rock her until she was out. When she was asleep, I had to hand her to a nurse, and Alex and I watched them put her into a machine and hook her up with lots of wires. Another nurse asked for us to please follow her out of the room, and when we got into the hall, she said that she would call us when the testing was done. At the moment of leaving the room, panic took over. I couldn't think, I couldn't speak. I just felt unbelievably panicked. And I'm sure God was speaking to me then, but I couldn't hear him. All I could hear was panic and fear. But let me tell you what God did. He couldn't get to me through my brain, so he used Jerry Coleman. I got a message from Jerry on my phone that said, "What time I am afraid, I will put my trust in thee." I read those words and immediately felt peace. It was exactly what I needed to hear. I received another message from God this past summer. I told you all that Alex and my first reaction to finding out that we were carriers of the cystic fibrosis gene was that we couldn't have any more children. I felt that way for around 7 months, but at the beginning of 2013, I started really wanting to try and have another baby, and I really struggled with that. I prayed and prayed about it. I worried that if we ever tried to have another baby, we'd be being irresponsible or selfish. There is a 1 in 4 chance that our second child would also have cystic fibrosis. We didn't know with Madeline, but we knew now. Was it wrong to have another child that we knew might have a harder life or an early death because of a gene that we could pass on to them? I asked our parents what they thought. I asked our family members what they thought. I asked Madeline's CF medical team and her pediatrician. I asked our friends. I prayed for months and months, and I felt like God, I never heard anything from him about it. And I so wanted a yes or no answer from him, but it felt like he was silent for months. One day I was sitting on the couch in our house, and Madeline was asleep in her play yard. I had the TV off, and I was just sitting there in silence. I prayed, "Dear God, I really need an answer. Can we try to have another child? Is that wrong? Please, please tell me." At that moment, God answered my question with another question. I felt him say, "Holly, what will you tell Madeline?" My first thought was, what? What will I tell her about what? He then said, "When Madeline is older and she asks you why she doesn't have a brother or a sister, what will you tell her? Will you tell her that you and Alex didn't want to try because you were afraid you'd have another child like her?" I immediately thought, no, I could never say that to her. She might think that if we had known, we would not have wanted her. If we had known that she had CF, we wouldn't have had her, and that is not the case. She is our blessing. She is our answer to prayer. We wanted her, we still want her, and we will always want her. I sat and I thought about that for a while. I felt that God had given me my answer. He is in charge of life. If Alex and I are never meant to have another baby, he would never let a baby be created. No baby is an accident. If he didn't have another baby for us, I could answer Madeline's question with that why she doesn't have a brother or sister, with we really wanted to have another baby and tried to, but God didn't have another child for us. He wanted us to only have you, and you are enough. But if God did bless us with another baby, we would be thrilled. We would thank God for this child, and we would know that if that baby had CF or didn't have CF, that he or she was the perfect child for Alex and me, just like Madeline is. We just have to trust God. Having Madeline has taught me so many things. Having her has really strengthened my relationship with God. I feel his love for her, and I feel his love for Alex and for me. He's always been there for us, and I know he's going to continue to be there for us in the future. Now, Pastor has asked for me to share some things with the church to let you know things that you should do and that you shouldn't do for Madeline. And here are a few things that Alex and I would like to ask of all of you. Will you please pray for her? I know most of you, if not all of you, have already been doing so, and we thank you. But please pray for her health. Please pray that Alex and I will be the parents to her that God would have us to be. A big thing is if you are feeling sick, especially something respiratory, please stay at least 6 feet away from Madeline. Most germs fall at 6 feet. So if you'll stay at a minimum of 6 feet, she's not going to catch something from you, most likely. Please make sure that you use hand sanitizer or wash your hands right before you touch her. I'm so thankful for our church for putting up the sanitizing machines around on the walls. We thank you so much for that. If you give Madeline something, please make sure that it has either been Lysoled, Cloroxed, or washed. If you haven't had time or been able to clean it first, please give it to Alex or me so that we can clean it and then we can give it to her. Also, please be aware that October through March are just a different time for my family. It's different months for us. Because of the flu and other winter sicknesses, I can't go out into the front of the church during that time and tell people bye as y'all are leaving, just because I can't get germs and then take them home to Madeline. During these months, we really try to keep Madeline at home, and so Alex and I also try not to go many places so that we won't bring germs back to her. Another one is please don't play cough with Madeline. Since having her, I've noticed that at times we'll have friends or family cough back at her when she coughs. Coughing is a very serious thing to us. We don't know if it's a symptom of something going on in her lungs. And she's still at an age where almost everything is a game. So we don't want her to learn to play cough with people. Lastly, we'd like to ask, please do not ever give Madeline something to eat. She cannot digest food without her enzymes, so if she eats what you give her without having enzymes first, she'll get really sick and her stomach will hurt. So no food, and especially no candy. Don't give her candy or juices. People with cystic fibrosis are at a very high risk of getting CF diabetes, and that's a stronger form of diabetes. In closing, I would like to take this opportunity to thank some people. We'd like to thank Madeline's medical team at Children's Hospital. We've learned so much from them, and they take wonderful care of Madeline and of us. We'd like to thank Dr. Peter Strogoff and the team at Fort Payne Pediatrics, because they are all such blessings. They are sent by God here for us. We can't thank them enough for what they have done for Madeline and what they continue to do for her. We'd like to thank all of you. Our family here at church is just absolutely fantastic. There are so many of you who have prayed for our family, and we thank you for that. I'd like to thank Dr. Decker for all that he does to keep me healthy so that I can take care of Madeline and not bring things home to her. And since we've had Madeline, there have been so many people that have helped, but Pam Gann, Jeff and Janet Williams, Edna Wilson, and Kylie Hawes have helped us at different times with taking care of her. We'd like to thank our families and our friends. We are beyond blessed with the amazing people that God has placed in our lives. And lastly, there are some people in particular that I would like to personally thank. I love my job here at the church. I truly do, and without these people, I wouldn't be able to do this job. Alex's dad and mom, Danny and Cecilia Flora, keep Madeline every Sunday and Wednesday so that we can be here at church, so that I can lead the music and Alex can play in the band. They are such blessings to us, and we love how much Madeline loves them. We love them that much too. Sandra Wright watches Madeline on Sundays from when we get here at 7 a.m. until Miss Cecilia and Brother Danny can get here at about 8:10. She is so patient and loving to Madeline, and she even made Madeline a gorgeous prayer quilt. Laurel Berry watches Madeline every Monday and Tuesday so that I can come to the church and work in my office and in the sanctuary. Laurel has learned how to do Madeline's physiotherapy and does that for her each time she keeps her. Laurel goes above and beyond to take care of Madeline. So to each of these people, please know what a blessing it is to us that we don't ever have to worry about Madeline when she's not with us. And I want to thank you all for letting us share today.